Okay, so what we want to do is we want to be able to control the amount of either the dry or the delayed mix here, otherwise referred to as wet-dry mix. So what we're going to want to do is we want to scale back this signal from the plug-in directly going to plug out and then our delay line. So what we can do is, let me show you actually how to do this with a patcher object. So I'm going to hit N and hit patcher. And then we're going to call this dry wet. Okay, and you'll actually notice that a new window opened up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build a patch in here, and it's going to be saved inside this. So it's almost like we're making our own object. So this is a nice way sometimes to save space in Ableton Live. And so what we want is we're going to create our own inlets and outlets. So if I hit N and I just hit outlet, yeah, so I'm going to hit outlet. And so there's an outlet, and if I hit N again and hit inlet, so there's an inlet. So what we're going to want is, I've got one outlet, one inlet. Now what we're going to want is we want two, so I'm option click dragging to have, this is going to be left and right. And then we're going to want 5 inputs. This first input is going to be from a gain slider so that we can adjust the wet dry mix. And then I'm going to hit option click and drag. So this is going to be dry signal left, dry signal right, then the delayed signal left and the delayed signal right. So we have 5 inlets and 2 outlets. And then what we're going to do is we have to add a couple signal multipliers here. So I'll click here and hit N and multiply tilde. So multiply 2 signals. So, and again, I'll duplicate this again. So I'm going to connect one to the left, whoops, and one to the right. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add some more of these. So I'm going to say option click drag for dry left, dry right, and then wet left and wet right. And so each of these will go, so this is going to go into left and then into the right, and it's always going to go into the left input here. And then from this, we're going, this is my wet signal, also into the same one there, right, into the left. And then we're going to bring this here. Okay, then our next step is our signal is going to go, so this is my dry signal into the left inlet, and this is my left signal again into the left inlet, and then same with my delay lines there. So our signal will go, this is our dry signal, this is our reverb, and then what we want to do is we want to scale this back. So a couple different ways that we can do this is we're going to use similar to the feedback. What we'll use a message, a percentage box, right? So 100% will be 100% wet, and then 50% will be half and half, and then 0 will be all dry. So so what we want to do is same kind of thing. So we're going to go, we're going to add a sorry. So we added an object here, and so we're going to divide the percentage, whoops, divide by 100. And so that signal is going to come in, and we're going to put that into the right inlets over here. So what we want to do is whatever number goes in over here, we want to make sure that it is the opposite, or what we want to do is subtract that. So the 2 will always add up to 1.0. So there's a handy way to do this. If I add this object. So I'm going to add an exclamation point minus. So this subtraction object's inlet's reversed. Let me show you what that means. So I'm adding this object. I'm going to click on the object and go to the help menu for this. So open help. And so you can do this with any object, right? If I want to select an inlet here and get help for it, I just go down to help and then open help, inlet help. And we get a nice little window here that tells us all about the way that object works. So let me show you what this object does. So I'm going to go help. And so what this object is a subtraction object inlet's reversed is it subtracts the input subtracts the input from a specified value. The exclamation minus object functions just like the minus object, but the inlet's functions are reversed. So let me show you what that means for us in terms of our float, right? We're going to be sending in a percentage that's being divided, right? We're going to send a percentage between 0 and 100 that will then get divided by 100 to give us a value between 0 and 1. And so if that value is, let's say, 0.3, then it will send out the number of, if we subtract it by 1 point, right? What this does is 1 point I will subtract this from that number to get this 0.97. So what this will mean is if I'm setting the value over here to 0.3, then the values over here on these will be 0.97. And so the whole value coming into each of these signal multipliers is 100% of the signal. So that's why if I do 0.26, then 0.74 is going to go the other. So it's a handy way to do this. So all we have to do is take this object, add a space, go 1 point, and then go from this object now and then connect this to the left inlet of each of these. I can lock this and close this subpatch now, because this is all ready to go. And the last thing I need to do, so you can kind of see that now I have some inlets and outlets here. So I can get rid of all of these patch cords, just clicking and deleting. So now I have left output, right output. And remember, this is, we're going to connect, so we're going to go, well, I'll do that last. So from plugin, I'm going to go into the second inlet. So that's my left dry signal, and then right dry signal, and then from omx.peaklim, we're going left delay and right delay. Our last step here for controlling wet dry mix is to hit the N key, type live, and dial. And so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to connect this to the patcher. We have to go to the inspector, and we'll change the short name to dry-wet. Whoops. So dry/wet. We'll keep it as a float. We'll change the unit style to %, and we're going to go from 0 to 100. And I think that's it. So now as I adjust, so I'm going to lock the patch. I'm going to save my work, hit save. And actually, I forgot to, so I'm back in patching mode, right? Here's presentation mode. I need to add this wet dry mix to presentation. I forgot to do that. So get the inspector, say include in presentation, lock this, and then go back to presentation mode, grab my wet dry mix, put it next there, lock the patch, and save my work. All right, now I can close this up and go back here. And so now I've got delay time, feedback, wet dry mix. Actually, let me just go back here and show you. If I go back into patching mode, I'm going to open So if I try to double click on this, I can't get to it. I have to lock the patch and then double click to open up the patcher. A shortcut to that is if I'm in edit mode, if I hold down the command key on a Mac, I believe it's control key on a PC, and so command and then double click. Now it opens up this patch, and so now I can see. So I'll put this here, and actually you can't see it because I'd need to add a number box. Let me just do that so I can show you. So let me unlock this patch and just grab a couple floats so you can see what's going on. This is sometimes a great way to just check your work and see if things are working correctly. So there's a number box that's going over into this area, and then this one for here. So if I click and lock and now hit wet dry mix, so you can see as I get to 50, right, this always has to equal 1. So if I go 100%, I'm getting 100% wet and nothing dry, versus now 0 is all dry and no delay. I don't need these, but I just wanted to show you how that works. And that's a way, again, you can check to make sure your work is correct. I'll delete these. It is important when you're doing this work that you don't forget the dot at the end of 100. It's 100 dot and 1 dot. It makes it a float. If you don't add the dot, then it tries to do whole numbers. So I'll lock that up. Go back to presentation mode. There we go. That's good. I can close this up. Sure, I'll save my work. So now we can try this out. So I just realized I actually made a mistake, and we don't want to signal multiplier objects here. Okay, so what I've done is I've added a couple comment boxes here to show left and right, left and right. And so, and again, this is going to be left, and then this is going to be the right. So you don't need to do this, but I'm just doing this to kind of show you. What I need to do is not use a signal multiplier here. So I'm going to delete these. So we actually want to add a signal, adding two signals together, right? This add signals object. And so what this will look like, if I pull them apart a little bit here, we're going to take the left signal and we're going to add that to the left from the delay. So this is the delay, this is the dry, and that's going to go to the left down here. And then our right signal is going to do the same thing. So I'm going to option click drag this one now. I'm going to come from the right and go from this outlet into the left inlet, and then go from this outlet to the left, to the right inlet. So now we're taking right and sending, the right dry signal and the right delay line, we're adding those two together to send out to here. So now this should work. I realize I forgot. So now this should work. It won't actually work if you just send the two multiplied signals into this. So we want to add them together. So I can close up this patch now. I can lock this, and now we can save our work. And now everything should work. Let me go back to presentation mode. Everything is there. We have delay time, feedback, wet dry mix. And so now let's start this. Oh, and actually I don't have the patch activated. Let me do that. So there's just dry. And again, if you want independent control over delay time, feedback, and for right and left, right, what we'd want to do is duplicate all of this stuff and create one for the right side and one for the left side, and just duplicate that, if that makes sense. So see if you can do that yourself. So it'd be actually kind of a cool thing. We can keep this one peak limb. And so basically what you would do is duplicate all of this part of the patch. And you'd have a separate for the left and separate for the right. Make sure you change these names, delay time left and then delay time right, and feedback left, feedback right. So you have independent control of that. And then you could create a stereo delay. So, all right, have fun with it. So the next step actually is after this, what we can do is try to sync time with our metronome in live. And so this is now just doing time, but let's say we want to be able to do like 8th notes or 16th notes or triplets and things like that. There's a little algorithm you can use for that to then either sync it with just time in milliseconds, or we can sync it to the metronome mark. And so what we actually need to do is there's some objects that work in Max for Live that actually talk back and forth between Ableton and Max. So for in this case, what is the tempo, the BPM at the moment? And so we're going to need that information to then convert into 8th notes and 16th notes and things like that. So that'll be the next part of the tutorial.